Namaste India and welcome to IndSamachar. The campaign for the US presidential poll has kicked off with online national conventions of both parties, the first ever in the history of US election. Trump's pitch on law and order recalls Nixon's in 1968. Battle lines have been drawn for the US presidential election with law and order versus poor leadership, especially during COVID-19 emerging as the key rival themes. At the Republican National Convention, Trump gave reference of protests over shooting of Jacob Blake and the riots and demonstration over the unfortunate death of George Floyd, both men of color, and said that America is under attack from anarchists, agitators, rioters, looters and flag burners, and that only he can stop the destruction. The situation of law and order is rather similar to the one during the 1968 elections when civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in April. There was violence across the country. Richard Nixon, Republican presidential candidate, made restoring law and order the centerpiece of his campaign and said that justice for every American is his core focus. He reached out to white suburban voters and referred to them as the voice of great majority of Americans, the forgotten Americans, the non-shouters, the non-demonstrators. Driven by the fear of violent mobs of black men, white voters in the suburbs carried the day and Nixon won. Trump is shaking up the same white suburban voter, the silent majority of America. At the Democratic National Convention, Biden focuses his campaign on lack of leadership to tackle the pandemic. If local voices are to be believed, Biden seems to have gone inadequate in terms of campaign agenda, and that's why pandemic is the topmost issue coming out in every Democratic convention. Overall, Biden's key message has been to caution American voters that another 4-year term would lead to more deaths and chaos on the streets. His team wants to keep the spotlight on Trump rather than himself. The race is placed well in favor of both at the moment, and both conventions got the same amount of online attention, about 50 million social media interactions. Two first ladies, former and current, dominated the viral stories from the two conventions. While Michelle Obama was the most popular from DNC, Melania Trump was the most viral from RNC. Melania Trump's message on COVID-19 and empathy was something Democrats found most effective. National polls can't be trusted as they didn't work in 2016 and even many times before as well. It did show in 2016 that Donald Trump was losing big. Pundits proclaim he can't win, but in the end he did. Leads like the one that Mr. Biden currently enjoys have been overcome before also. In 1988, Democrat Michael Dukakis was 17 points ahead after his party's convention but lost in November to George W. Bush. According to a survey from mid-August that showed Biden 7 points ahead, but when voters were asked who they thought their neighbors were supporting, Mr. Trump was ahead by 5 points. This may point to the existence of a group of shy Trump supporters who will not admit their loyalty to pollsters. Another poll taken in July in Pennsylvania, a key battleground state, showed a 13-point lead for Biden. But when voters were asked who they thought would win the state, they opted for Mr. Trump. That is all for now. Please follow IndSamachar for more news and update. Thank you.